all, thank you guys for all the views on my Michael Brown response video. Didn't even think that it was possible to get that many views. I know it was only like 51, but I didn't think that that many people would even want to watch it. So today I am going to talk to you about another current events issue, but I do want to let you guys know a little bit of what you should kind of expect from this channel. I'm gonna do a couple more tag videos to kind of feel my way around YouTube, because I do want to do YouTube and I want to upload videos at least once or twice a week. I'm not super busy, I'm not in school, but I may become busy. Hopefully I'll get a job. Basically, but I'm just gonna feel around my YouTube channel a little bit before I know really what I want to do. But I will talk about current events every once in a while, and this one is going to be on the Ebola crisis. So I'm going, my computer's right here, so I'm going to read a couple of things about Ebola and how I think that the government should be handling this and my concerns. Okay, so if you haven't heard about the Ebola virus, it's this very deadly disease. They call it a it's a hemorrhaging fever, but I don't know like how to pronounce it like that, like hemorrhagic fever. But it makes you hemorrhage. And what I'm going to try to do is I kind of want younger people to kind of have an understanding of what's going on. So that's another reason why I'm kind of doing current events. But basically I'm going to kind of give you the breakdown on like what Ebola is, the symptoms, and how it's transmitted, and then I'll get back into my discussion about how I feel about it. So it's not transmitted through the air. It's either through contact with blood or another sick person. They're fluids. It's mostly fluids. So if you touch a dead animal or person who has Ebola, you contract it. It's not an air thing, it's not a water thing, it's just bodily fluids. So it's basically how you get it. So basically, here it's saying that people who have Ebola aren't infectious until they have symptoms. And so with what I'm about to get into, that's going to make a little bit more sense, especially for people who are a little bit scared about getting the Ebola virus from being on planes recently. So basically the symptoms of Ebola are fever, fatigue, muscle pain, headache, and sore throat. And then it goes into, those were the beginning symptoms, and it goes into vomiting, diarrhea, rash, impaired kidney and liver function, and then there's usually, sometimes internal and external bleeding, meaning bleeding is, you're just bleeding everywhere, like gums. I've heard bleeding from like eyes. It's crazy. So I first heard about this probably late August, when Kent Brantley, the first doctor, I think he was the first American to get Ebola, came to America. And that was a big deal for me because I live in Georgia. And I live about 45 minutes away from Atlanta, and, well, maybe like 20, 30. But the bigger issue is the hospital that he was staying at, right across from it, is my doctor. Like, literally, right across the street is my doctor. And it is very scary. Like, you have absolutely no idea what's going on when they're bringing these people here. So, I remember when he first came, because Nancy Wright Bull came a little bit after him, probably like 2 or so days after him. She also came here to Atlanta. So they were both in Liberia, I think, and Kent Brantley was helping. He was working with Ebola patients. Nancy Wright Bull was helping with decontamination. She wasn't like in there with the Ebola patients, but she was decontaminating people, and that's how they got it, because they got bodily fluids on them. A lot of people did and didn't want these people to come to America because a lot of people are really scared of having a big outbreak, an epidemic of Ebola in America, even though the CDC and everybody was trying to assure everybody that it was going to be contained and there wasn't going to be any issues. So the news followed them all the way to the hospital. National news followed them all the way to the hospital. It was a big deal. And I was kind of concerned because my mom works down there. And like I said, my doctor's over there. Sometimes I go over there. It's very concerning when somebody with a very serious and usually fatal disease is coming and no one's ever treated it, especially here. But we didn't really we heard a lot about them getting in there, and we saw the ambulance and the isolation room, but we didn't really know what was going on in there. And all we knew is that they were getting some experimental drug in them, and they first got it in Liberia, and then they came here and got it. And only a few weeks later, even though a lot of people were kind of not really remembering, they were cured. And they were saying that some of the bodily fluids are still contagious after cure, but they don't really have a lot of survivors of Ebola in general. So the Nancy Wright Bull and the other guy, Kent Brantley, both walked out of here same day, cured. A couple days after that, another American. Well, we had a scare in New York, but it turned out the guy didn't have Ebola, and there was another person who had Ebola who was treated in, I don't remember what state it was, but he was also treated here in America. And so after that, people were just kind of like, oh, whatever, it's fine, we're not gonna get Ebola. Obama did send some troops out there, and the CDC did send a lot of people out there, but it's still getting worse over there. But the biggest issue that's now making national news is that first person diagnosed with Ebola over here is in Texas, and people are really, really scared that not only so he did come from Africa, and that's where he got it. He didn't get it like here. He came from Africa, and he got on a plane straight to Dallas. But people, they don't want to release his plane information because they don't want people to freak out. And they were saying that, you're not contagious until he was showing symptoms, and he wasn't showing symptoms for a few days after he was back to Dallas. So now he's being treated, and people are freaking out, and the CDC is making all these comments, and they're sending people over there. It's a big deal for a lot of people. Am I concerned? I'm concerned that it is going to spread to America, only because we're being really negligent. And what I mean by that is, we're just kind of being really slow on checking people before they get on planes. And I'm not necessarily saying that we should shut down flights and boats and stuff from, these places, but we definitely need to double check these people, maybe hold off on them just to make sure that they won't get any symptoms, because these people who could be getting on these planes could be healthy people, and they could be mixing with Ebola patients, and that could just start a lot of issues. So I think that we do need a little bit more security and maybe medical personnel at the airports in Liberia, instead of just saying, well, they weren't showing symptoms, so we'll just put them on the plane anyway. That's not really a good call on that, I guess. About bringing it here, I feel that a lot of people need to know the symptoms. And I had look up the symptoms. Like, I kind of had a general idea of the symptoms. And I'm not saying, like, it's going to be really likely that people here will get it. But they just need to know, like, with the people they interact with, if they see anything irregular, out of the norm, they need to check it out. And I'm not saying that it would even be Ebola, but there's also another virus going around, the enterovirus 68, that killed one kid today. I saw it on CNN, and that's an issue too. So basically, we need to be super, super vigilant with what's going on. When people get back, when people are coming back to America from Africa, they definitely need to and I wouldn't even say quarantine, but if they're coming from certain areas, they definitely need to be watched before they go out into the general public. Because if these people are wandering in a hospital sick, they could be getting other people in these emergency rooms sick. Because who knows what's going on in those emergency rooms? They could be sneezing, coughing, vomiting all over the place. And we have absolutely no idea how well these hospitals are cleaning up. So I think we definitely need to keep an eye on those people. Another thing is that I think that we should test more of that experimental drug just in case. Because obviously we're still having a lot of people who are still going to Africa, and a lot of people still coming back, and we need to have that drug ready. And I understand that it's an experimental drug and they're still trying to see if it even works, but I definitely think that they either need to speed that up, find something else, or a combination of that, because we need something, obviously, because sitting here doing nothing isn't going to help. But I do think the CDC is trying to test it and send it out anyway. Do I think Obama should have sent the troops? Maybe, but I don't, troops aren't medical personnel. Troops can help, give out flyers, because they're trying to aware everybody in Africa of Ebola, and I do think that that's good, but I think he needs to get a big medical team together. Even though that's kind of what the CDC's job is, I think the government itself needs to get some sort of team that's willing to go out there and help. Maybe try some of the experimental drug, maybe try some other experimental drugs. And that is an ethics issue too. Trying experimental drugs on people, they're experimental. We have absolutely no idea what's going to happen if these people take this, or if kids can take it. We don't know. And so that's an ethics issue in itself. But since that the Ebola is just getting so out of control, something needs to be done, and fast. And I feel like they should have done something before it was even diagnosed here. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. That's basically all you can really do. We can't quarantine every single person who's coming from Africa, because they may not even be in that part of Africa, and they may have not even had any form of contact. So if we're just, quarantining people coming from Africa, a lot of these people aren't going to be sick, obviously, because only a couple people from America were sick. But I think that they should probably send some more medical people out there, not necessarily troops, because they don't know how to deal with. They can deal with riots, they can deal with large crowds, they can deal with angry people, they can deal with, dysfunction and all that stuff, but they cannot deal with, like, a medical crisis. They could probably be helpful and keep peace, but, like, they definitely need some more medical personnel out there. My teacher worked for the CDC, and, she said, and this was way before the Ebola virus, she said that they do work pretty fast for vaccines and medications, especially when, it seems like it's getting pretty bad, which I can understand, but, I think that they should test a couple more things just to make sure. I don't know, it just kind of concerns me, because, like, a part of me wants to just say, go out there and bring all the drugs you have and just start giving vaccinations, but they're experimental, and that's the issue with this. It's like they don't have a cure, they don't know what this would do to kids, they don't know a lot of things about this, and that's why it's still experimental. And that's pretty much it. I don't really know what else to say about it, because that's pretty much all I know. I know the WHO did respond to it, and I was reading that. The WHO responds by supporting surveillance, community engagement, case management, laboratory service, contact tracing, infection control. Like, they basically are tracking all of this. So this is basically, and they have a chart here that I can't really show you because it's going to be backwards. Plus, it's on my computer. And so they basically had a chart of like all the occurrences and stuff like that. So, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys like what you see. If you do, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, whatever you want. But thanks for watching, and I appreciate it, and I will try to do some more, daily life type things, like, news, because people obviously like it, but thank you so much for watching.